everyone, and happy 50th anniversary to Child Care Resources. My name is Mary Jane Paulding Jones. I am the retired Executive Director of this Center of Rockland. I think of you guys often and realize how time flies. It's been 18 years since I relocated to Hilton Head, South Carolina. In the beginning, preparing for CCRNR, there were just a few willing souls who got together with Phyllis Helbrun to help her start an agency. That agency would provide training and support for anyone working with young children. However, as simple as it sounds, it wasn't that easy. But Phyllis was on a mission. Those who are interested have been meeting regularly. Those of you who either work with Phyllis or just remember her know that when she was on a mission, get on board or move out of the way. However, things did start slowly happening. School district office space to hold meetings. Elected officials believed this was a worthwhile initiative and began to fund it. Phyllis hired staff to fill new positions. Child care programs opened up to the idea of workers improving their skills. Center of Rockland was one of the first programs to use CCRNR services, but there was need everywhere. So they continued to grow and fill that need. And the rest is history. Looking back, I would be remiss if I didn't say good job to a few people I interacted with regularly. Marcia, Judy, Jane, and Elaine. At CCRNR, people are doing a good job every day, so I salute you as well. So again, happy anniversary for a job well done.
In 1971, I joined an organization, the National Council of Jewish Women, NCJW, and I met Phyllis Helbrun. She was the president of the organization. And NCJW is a national organization that focuses on issues around women and children. And they have priorities. And they focus on important issues that need some solutions. There are problems, and this organization works to try to get solutions within the community. So one of the priorities in 1971 was childcare. The need for childcare was growing. More and more women were going back to work when their children were young. And so NCJW of Rockland and Phyllis Helbrun decided that what Rockland County needed was a child care council. And they were starting child care councils all over the country. And the child care council is kind of the infrastructure of child care. It's a way of bringing together the families, the providers of child care, developing child care. And so Phyllis wanted to start this. And there was one beginning in Westchester County, right across the river. And so she invited the director of that council, Sally Ziegler, to come and speak to people who were interested. And so she invited anyone who was interested, and I was interested. And so that was really when I learned about what she wanted to do. Now, Phyllis worked for the Commissioner of Health in Rockland County, and so she was very close to Rockland County's legislatures and commissioners, and she talked to everyone about it. And she really was a woman to be reckoned with. In 1974, the legislature decided to put money into the budget and give space to the council. So they money for a director, that was Phyllis, and a part-time secretary. And that's how Child Care Council started. At that time, it was called the Daycare and Child Development Council of Rockland.
I'd like to step back for a moment and talk about the context when Child Care Resources of Rockland was created. In the early 70s, I had the opportunity to be a part of a meeting that the Ford Foundation pulled together that brought people from all over the country who did what Phyllis did. That is, they felt there was a community need for finding childcare, for improving childcare, for providing the things that families needed in addition to childcare. And they didn't have a name. There was just, they were just responding. And these people, largely women, kept notes of where the good childcare was, often in index cards, and people started to be referred to them, and they started to answer the phone and tell parents how to look for childcare, how to judge childcare, and where good childcare programs were in their community. Again, no name. They were just doing something that was a need in their community. And the Ford Foundation heard about these people doing this, and they pulled together a meeting in the 70s, in the early 70s, and this person from San Francisco discovered that this person from South Carolina, that this person from Boston, that this person from Minneapolis were all doing the same thing. And ultimately that became Child Care Resource and Referral. At that time, child care was seen so negatively. It was seen as something that parents did to hurt their children. Stranger care, and the pictures in the magazines had usually children looking sad, looking out at the world. It was just seen as a necessary evil for people who had to work, and it was just at that point, only about 25% of women were going into the workforce after having a child. That number began to skyrocket. And I began to feel at the time that I had 2 children. I was working. I was working at a college of education, Bank Street College. And we had at Bank Street, during the war, we had childcare for infants and toddlers. And we didn't think it was bad when it was in the public service of helping women support the country to win a war. But suddenly it turned around to be bad. I knew the history. And with a colleague and funding from the Ford Foundation at that time, we set out to find good childcare all over the country. And we wrote a book called The New Extended Family. So in the early 70s, my husband Norman and I moved to Rockland County. And I had published this book now in 1977 called The New Extended Family, Daycare That Works. And Phyllis found me. She called me. She must have heard about my book somewhere. And she asked me to come meet with her because she was doing what these women and men, but largely women, all over the country had been doing, which is meeting a community need, coming from all different backgrounds, but seeing a need and meeting it. And Phyllis asked me to meet with her and ultimately asked me to be on the board. But when I met Phyllis, I found what I had discovered in looking at good childcare for 2 years with a Ford Foundation grant to find what were the qualities of exemplary childcare. And Phyllis embodied them. Someone who saw a need, who didn't say no to the need, knew how to take care of themselves, but did everything to make that need happen. She was someone who had a vision. She was someone who was like a magnet, who brought good people together to do this thing that was pretty, it's probably hard for people to understand how revolutionary this was at the time. Again, childcare is seen as a necessary evil. It's not seen as a good thing. It's seen as separating mothers. There were endless debates in Congress, I know, because I spoke at them, about childcare as being bad for kids and hurting the attachment between parents and children, hurting children's brain development. I mean, it was a really negative world around childcare into which this organization was born. But it took the kind of visionary, it took the kind of person who was listening, who responded, who had a vision, who didn't take no for an answer, never take no for an answer. I just can visualize Phyllis at all kinds of meetings when people would say, this won't work and that won't work. This would happen on the board. She would say, if it was important, we'll find a way to make it work. And so that's the context. It was a part of a movement. She was not the only one. There were people like her all over the country. But they created what today is now, in a sense, taken for granted for parents. Yes, you can call someone and find out where the good childcare is. Yes, there are organizations in a community that help you judge childcare as a parent, but also meet your other needs as a parent. And because if you listen, you keep saying, well, it's not just finding childcare that's the only need. There are many other things that families need. And the responsive organizations either do them or collaborate with others who are doing them.
I first met Phyllis Helbron and was introduced to the agency back in 1978. I had just moved to Rockland County from Detroit, Michigan, where I had been working at the Merrill Palmer Institute, which was then part of Wayne State University, training students with a grant from the Comprehensive Employment Training Act, or what was then known as CETA. When I came here to Rockland County, I was looking for something similar. I enjoyed doing teacher training. And I kind of looked in the phone book. We didn't have Google in those days. And saw what was then known as the Rockland Council for Young Children. I thought, okay, this sounds promising. So I did what I did in Detroit. I showed up one day at the doorstep and introduced myself. Got me a job in Detroit. I was hoping it would get me a job in Rockland County. And I met Phyllis Helbron, who was one of only 3 employees at that time of the Rockland Council for Young Children. It was located in a room in the annex of Rockland Community College, and there were only 3 employees. My position changed. I was first a trainer, working for originally the CETA grant and helping with various training programs. Somewhere along the way, I became the kind of associate director. I think there was an associate director position in there. Because we were growing so fast, Phyllis really needed some help to oversee all that was going, and I was having fun. The wonderful thing about working for a nonprofit is if you had an idea that other people thought was good, and there was funding for it, if you could write the grant and get the funding, you could just do all these cool things. And we did we had conferences that I think were quite extraordinary. We did one of the first Help for the Hurried Child conferences at the community college, and really tried to address the issue of kids being pushed too fast, too soon when they were so young. We brought in speakers. We brought in amazing people from Bank Street to do workshops for us. We were teaching ourselves and teaching the community. I just remember never having a dull moment because if things got boring, we just wrote another grant for something that sounded like it was really necessary in the county, and we thought we could get funding for it. And I remember clearly, I mean, Phyllis had been there a long time, and she was at this point in her 70s. And she would tell us frequently that she had absolutely no intention of leaving anytime soon. So just basically don't count on, getting her job too soon. And I was like, okay, I wasn't the only one that she was telling this to. But I also was not sure that I wanted to be the director. I had seen over the years just how hard Phyllis had worked. I knew pretty intimately both the wonderful things about the agency and the challenges, and making sure we had adequate funding at all time was something that could keep you up late at night. I do remember Phyllis asking me, would I be interested or was I interested? And I was pretty frank with her. I said, wasn't sure. And for all the reasons I just said. I probably needed to make a little more money, or at least feel a little more financially secure. I knew that there were challenges and there were also opportunities, but I just kind of left it at that. And she got very quiet. And actually, it was within a week or so that she actually went to the board and announced that she would be retiring, probably sometime within the next year. So I think she herself was very ambivalent about leaving. She loved it. It was her baby. She was incredibly successful at that job. And it was very much her identity. It was so much so that the council, or was by then I think known as Child Care Resources of Rockland, was identified so closely with the name Phyllis Helbron that they were synonymous. And it's not so easy filling the shoes of the founding director, but that's the way it ended up. I did stay. And I had an enormous amount of support. And but she, for that first year, would meet with me, I think it was like once a week or once every couple of weeks, we would have breakfast together. And she would just be there as this incredible support to me if I had questions, and she'd have advice, not pushing anything, not judging anything I was doing, just being there as this incredibly valuable resource.
One of the things that I remember, if you had, because again, this business was growing in leaps and bounds. So if you had an idea and you went to her and says, hey, Phyllis, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? She says, oh, because we were out in the field. We would come back with all kinds of ideas. And we were all vested in, we could do this and we could do that. And so you came and he says, Phyllis, what do you think about this? And she says, oh, that's very interesting. Let me think about that. Next week you would say, well, what do you think? She says, well, it's still back here, but it's moving forward to the front. She was very sensitive to the needs of her staff. All she had to do is pick up the phone to any of the politicians, or at the time, the head of the Department of Social Services or the state, local school districts, and say, we need, and we got it.
My first interaction with Phyllis Helbron, I was an infant toddler teacher at a early child care center. And it was just when child care was becoming popular and not popular, a lot of corporate ambivalence to child care. And I was fortunate enough in the early mid 80s that with the corporate ambivalence, New York State decided that they would put in early care and education centers on their sites. So I was one of the infant toddlers that started that way. And so Phyllis, who was a child care, at that time, it was Rockland Child Care Council for Young Children. We've changed our names through the years. Said, in order to learn more about early child care and advocating, I think you should come and meet with us. At that time, we would take buses up to Albany to advocate for the need for quality early child care and for supporting families because so many women were heading back into the workforce. So Phyllis said, come to my office, we're going to talk, and we're going to start to get you as an advocate of early childhood. At that time, there were not that many advocates there, so it was really important to go up to Albany and find out what was going on a new and developing field. And once I started doing that with Phyllis, she said, that's it. I've got you hooked. Now you're not only caring about early childhood children and families, you're finding about how much more there is to go. So we began working for advocacy. And I agreed and believed in the agency so well um, that I had to stand by and support it, as I've done for now almost 50 years.
Uh, I'm an accountant, and I was in the same building as Louise Orazio Mason. We knew each other. I actually was her accountant, but we were also somewhat friends. And she caught me in the hall one day, and she says to me, "Donna Lee, you got to join the board of CCRR." And I looked at her and said, "What is CCRR?" And she just went on with this passionate explanation about this wonderful agency that dealt with children and their families, and how they were just were great. And I said to her, "Well, okay, but how can I help a childcare agency? I don't know anything about childcare, and I don't have children, so how can I help?" And she says, "No, you've got other talents. You can help the agency and come join us. Just come check us out." I said, "Fine. Okay." So I did. I came to their offices and I met with the leadership, the executive director, and a lot of the employees there, and talked to them and learned what they were doing. Spoke to the accounting staff, of course, because they're the most important. And then I met with some of the board members, and I decided, well, okay, let me give it a shot. Let me see if I can help them. And Louise had worked her way up to president. She was president. At that time, I was incoming president. And we were doing a lot for the agency and working on it. And then she passed away suddenly. It was a sad time for the agency. She was very energetic and really doing great things for the agency. But what that meant for me is I now had to step in and complete her term as president. And then I followed it up with 2 more years of my own presidency. And at that time, the bylaws had a maximum of a 9-year term. So I continued after my presidency was done. I stayed on the board till the end of the 9-year term. And after that, they still wouldn't quite let me go. And I remained on the finance committee and advisor to the board after that. So,
well, Phyllis, Phyllis was a very special person. There's a term that was used, and I've seen it often in terms of how one goes about one's business. And it's one of the things that's most remarkable about her is that she did it in such a quiet way. That she really allowed people to follow her through what they call servant leadership. Servant leadership. You serve first, you show, in fact, what you're interested in and how important whatever the issue is. And she was just so good. She was tolerant, she was patient, and she was ever present. She always was there, involved, and she was, for all intents and purposes, for those many years, child care resources and servant leadership. It's a real, look it up. It's interesting definition.
An experience I had with Phyllis Helbron was not necessarily educationally connected, but I didn't know Phyllis very well, but I really admired her work. She created an agency. At that point, we were called Rockland Council for Young Children. And it was the first agency that took into account the needs of young children and of their parents and the needs of the community. And so I really admired her for that. I didn't think she really knew me very well, but one day she saw me kind of limping around the office and asked me what happened. And I said, well, I had hurt my knee. And she immediately went into her office, got the name of a physical therapist who did sort of non-traditional physical therapy and gave me the information and told me to go to this person. Actually, she sort of insisted that I go to this person. But I think that was a reflection of who she was. She was compassionate, she was caring, and she was determined, and she contributed so much to the Rockland community.
Phyllis Helbron was my first female, strong, advocate, compassionate, passion-filled leader that I had the honor of witnessing and working with. The first memory I have of this is watching her in Albany on Advocacy Day for childcare, and the way that she just navigated her storytelling and sprinkling in data and details to really push forward the childcare agenda with representatives. I thought to myself, this woman is brilliant. And I saw it at such a young age, right out of college. The second is a little bit more personal, her impact that she made on me. And that is, after I presented, she came up to me with a little feedback. I never felt diminished. I never felt little or less than. She gave me all the positive feedback that one would give. Nina, you were great. You had so much to say. You were poised. You were calm. And then she said, but you just need to be mindful of your likes. If you could just cut out your likes, you'll be perfect. And it's so ironic and such full circle when thinking about that advice from 35 years ago to cut out the likes in order to succeed. And today, you need the likes in order to succeed. So I really think it's come full circle. But I just smile when I think of her, and so grateful for everything she showed me and the ability to speak and not say like. Thank you.
The way I think of Phyllis is less about a memory of who she was and more of what she represented. When I got here, I think I was toward the end of her tenure. I started in 1991, and I had never met a female CEO or a female who led any kind of organization. So I was a child of the 70s, I grew up in the 80s, and so I knew women worked, my mom worked, but I'd never met like a working mom who had done so much and been so successful. So when I came as a young person to see this woman who had created this thing, and it was such an important part of her community, and she was a mom and she was a grandma and she was a wife, to me, it was really my first time seeing somebody up close who showed me, oh, you can be all of these things and still be a woman. So she really represented a successful woman. That's how I think of her. And it was nice to know her for the little bit of time that I did before she took leave.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about Phyllis Help and my first encounter with her. When I called her after I had found out about her from Ellen Galinsky, and I said, Ellen Galinsky, I met her in Germany, we were both there, and she suggested I call you about the possibilities of a job. She said, okay, if Ellen Galinsky told you, then okay, I'll give you some time. And she had me come in, and I met with her in her office. She included Judy Savage in that meeting, who was her deputy director at the time. And we just talked about who I am, what I did, what I knew, and why I had moved to New York, and that I was looking for something in this field. I liked doing training, professional development, working with early childhood programs. So if there was anything that they thought I could do, I'd like to. And she said, well, I don't know for sure. We might have something coming up with a business, but I think we need to have somebody check you out first. So next week, could you do a training for providers for us? And I'm going to have Marcia Shear, our training education coordinator, watch you. And I said, okay, we'll do that. So I was a little nervous about that because she was pretty much like, I don't know that I just want to hire you. I want to make sure that you're the person that you say you are, which is smart on her part. You shouldn't just automatically hire somebody that you don't know. So I did a workshop that next week. I met with Marcia Shear. She sat in on the workshop. It was in a classroom at one of the high schools in the county. So the people that were in that training, there was probably about 20 people that came to it who were providers in the county. And I did a workshop on physical activity and working with young children. And so evidently it worked out well. The evaluations were good. Marcia thought I did a good job, and she told Phyllis, and Phyllis said, okay, when can you start? And I said, I can start whenever. I'm here. I'm ready to do things. So we went and met with Siba Geige. She was very, very authoritarian with them. This is the person that I want to have come work with you to set up the homes that you're wanting. And I think that she can do a good job. And you ask her whatever questions you want to ask her. So that went fine. So I was working here for a while, just a few months maybe. I started in November of 1991. And in February, March every year is considered the legislative time frame where advocates in early childhood would go to Albany and meet with their elected officials to talk about the importance of childcare and early learning. And Phyllis was amazing at this. It was like following somebody around that was groomed to talk to elected officials and know what to tell them. And she wasn't going to take no for an answer. So I asked her if I could go. I said, I'd like to go. And she said, well, you only work 2 days a week. I can't pay you to go up there on 2 days a week when you're supposed to be doing this other job. And I said, well, could I go on my own time? And she agreed. But she wasn't going to pay me to go like other people on staff. I went on my own time because I only worked 2 days a week and she couldn't afford to pay me an extra day. So that was kind of one of my first real encounters with her, as far as being she the boss and me asking to do something and she basically saying no, but I'll let you go if you're going to just go as a volunteer. After that, I have to say that she's a force in that she does not back down when she's talking to people. If she has an idea, she wants you to understand what that idea is before you start talking back and saying something else. She expects to be expected to be listened to and have us be there listening. And then if she would ask for a response or an idea, we could give it. Otherwise, no. Whatever she said was what we did. That was my first few months working with Phyllis. And so that was the way I got onto the board, because I was a parent in a cooperative nursery school. And so, we looked at the quality of care. And so we wanted to have a conference. And Phyllis thought that was a really good idea, because that would get the information out about CCRR, which was the Daycare and Child Development Council. And so I was able to help put together the first conference in Rockland for early childhood people. And it was really fun to do that.
So at the time, the person who was doing the Channel of the K-Food program was leaving, and that's what I started with. And I went through exposure process, learning the job. And at that time, there were only 13 providers that were participating in the food program. Soon after that, it blew up. It took a mind of its own, and then there were 45 providers, 50 providers. But in the meantime, I was also participating in other events. The regulations, the childcare regulations, were just starting to come into the picture. I call it, during that time, it was like it was giving birth to the childcare regulations. And actually, at that time, my mother translated the existing draft into Spanish and sent it up to Albany. But there was so much happening locally. There were visibilities. We would call large corporations and speak to the HR person to allow us to have a table where we can introduce our services to their employees. The agency at that time, we were doing childcare referrals, but this was before childcare referrals became that it wasn't known at that time. It was childcare, parents need childcare. So what the agency would do, we would go out. If someone called and says, I want to care for children, we were the ones that would go out and, to the best of our ability and knowledge, determine whether the person was someone that could care for other people's children, help them with the process, looked at their setting. Did they have the 2 exits, a smoke detector? Where will the children be taking a nap or playing? So we were the ones going out there and visiting these providers before we would refer parents to them. Our records were 3x5 post-it cards. And so we were that agency here in Rockland County, and that was the beginning of the evolving resource and referrals agency, so to speak. We had visibilities. We had a huge, conference, annual conference. And the Rockland Community College was one of our strong supporters. We would hold them there. Anyone who was interested in children were invited to come. It was fun times. All of these issues were fun times and growth, a period of growth. The participation in the Child and Adult Care Food Program, known as CACFP, grew to almost 100. By 2008, there were 4 of us working because it is a federally funded program administered through the state. So there were regulations and a lot of visits that we needed to do, and there were 4 of us doing that work. In 2008, the state started to look into legally exempt. And in the beginning, I was a person that was part of that. They asked me, do you want to do this? It's in its infancy. And I said, oh, yes, I was so excited to do that. And after about a year, by that time, Jane was the executive director. And she said, you need to choose CACFP or legally exempt. And I chose legally exempt because I had for so many years on CACFP. It was time for someone else to take it over. And I wanted to give my full time to legally exempt.
Well, the staff, Jane Brown in particular, helped us procure a $1 million building grant to finish a state-of-the-art child care center on the campus of Rockland Community College. And it was her letter of support and the letters of support from politicians like Senator Thomas Morahan and Representative Ellen Jaffe that really convinced those in power and those with the money that we deserve to build this child care center on our campus. It was finally built, and I must say it serves many things besides becoming a support to the community and to the students who have children that need to complete classes. It also serves as a lab school for our teacher education early childhood students. Regarding our Campus Fund and Learn staff, CCR&R are still the go-to organization for support and resources and training, first aid classes, help with CDAs. Child Care Resources of Rockland has been a wonderful, supportive, steadfast beacon of education for our staff, and I hope it continues for many years.
I became president of CCRR, then Rockland Council for Young Children, because I believed in the importance of having a strong board and leadership as we were continuing to investigate the need for special child care services within our community and our county. I decided to do it twice because our board, as it continued to develop its professionalism, realized that one of the things we needed to do as a board is to have some succession planning and to bring people on with commitments. when you came in on as a board member, you had an opportunity your first time to serve 3 years. And you had an opportunity to serve 3 times 3 years. So I served for 9 years, and then I took a year off. Actually, I didn't take a year off because we were still working on things. I actually stayed 10 years and then took a year off and went back and realized that they were still teaching. New board members were learning new board responsibilities and whatnot. So they needed some strong leadership to continue to improve the agency.
When I look back, I realized I had a wide variety of roles at CCR&R. It started in 1989 when I was first hired just to be a teacher for a child development course that they were running. Because at that time, they were just learning how important it is for child care providers to have some knowledge of child development when they're taking care of kids for 8 to 10 hours a day. So that was where I started. But then I moved on to teach teachers through that course. And then actually, Child Care Resources partnered with Rockland Community College to teach the same course. I was enabled to teach the same course for some of the people who worked in childcare, for them to be able to get college credit. And therefore, many of them continued on after taking those courses, which led to a Child Development Associate credential. So that was two jobs I had. Then I was CDA coordinator, which involved training. Then I was a quality enhancement specialist, which involved giving technical assistance and observing in universal pre-kindergarten classrooms. Then I had a special project where we got a grant from the March of Dimes, and I went all over the lower Hudson Valley to different child care resource centers and helped them with a SIDS program, that is training to help prevent sudden infant death syndrome. And then I was a special needs coordinator, so you can see I really had a lot of different jobs. And I was very lucky because through the jobs I was able to help the agency, but also help people in the early childhood education field. And it helped me. It helped me grow personally and professionally. I was very lucky to work here with wonderful people.
My position was child care resource counselor. So my role was to speak to parents and advise them on what to look for when they were looking for quality child care, make referrals to them, and then speak with them as they would visit and just accept feedback. What I like about it, there was a lot of things. I think what I liked most was I felt the value in what I was doing was so great. At the time when I started, I didn't have children, so I envied all parents. And then I actually was pregnant here with my first son, and actually with my daughter as well. And I was able to look at it with a different set of lenses as a parent. So I really enjoyed being able to help parents find quality childcare and speak with them, quite honestly, and sort of put their fears at bay. So one of the things I learned being here was we make referrals, not recommendations. And I've actually taken that to heart with my entire life. Like, I believe it's really important to guide people, but to allow people to take responsibility for themselves and make their own opinions and sort of just be there to guide them. So it was always about make referrals, not recommendations. And I think that's sort of a good way to live your life and have relationships with people. So that stayed with me.
One of the things that I appreciated most about being the child care counselor, my first job right out of college, was it was the seed that planted my career, my 35-year career in childcare. From that job, I still today advocate for quality childcare at the state, federal, and at a corporate level. I help parents navigate finding quality childcare, and I ensure that programs are available for accessibility and affordability when families are looking for childcare. The best part of my memories, the best memories I have from working there is that today I get to say to all my mentees how I had to help people find childcare by going through my index cards that had all the names of providers. And then I actually had to use a pen and pencil and write down the names of family childcare providers and put it the paper in an envelope and put a stamp on it and put it in the mail. And that, my friend, is how people used to find childcare in 1990. And today it is much different, but the issues are still really important. The issue of finding quality, ensuring that providers are educated, and really advocating for high quality, good pay, and accessibility.
The first time I heard about Child Care Resources of Rockland was many, many years ago when my father was being honored by the association for work he did on their behalf. And so that was probably about 25, 30 years ago. So that was my first recollection was going to an event where my dad was honored.
So what has kept me connected to CCRR for me has always been on the financial end. I mean, that's where I think I give the talent to the agency and where I help them. And I think what struck me immediately about this agency is they always acted proactively and not reactively. And what I mean by that is they always seem to be anticipating something, or financially, maybe they'd lose a grant, or maybe something would happen, or maybe there'd be a change in minimum wage. And they were always trying to proactively make sure the agency stayed healthy and on track. And that was just such a surprise to me because I work with a lot of nonprofits and businesses, and everybody else is reactionary. You know, they lose a grant and they're 6 months down the road before they realize, hey, we just spent $40,000 in salaries and we're not getting reimbursed. How are we going to deal with this? But CCRR was always on top of it. They were always ahead of it. And we were doing budget amendments quarterly, making sure the numbers were good and we weren't taken by surprise. We were always able at the year end to decide, could we give bonuses or not? It was fun to be an active part of what they were doing. And I also liked that they were always, again, trying to do things correct, and again, from a financial perspective. But during that time when I was on the board, we were just so active. We, on top of reviewing the budgets we had to deal with, we had a daycare program at the time called NORSAC. Generally, we don't do daycare itself. We serve the daycare community and help the daycare providers and the parents and the children. And we don't do daycare, but we had one daycare site, and it was a very hard decision to decide, was this really what we wanted to be doing, and was it the right thing for the agency? And we actually worked hard in transferring that program over to the Rockland YMCA, which actually was successful and I think beneficial to both our agencies. And we redid all the accounting policies from A to Z, how you pay things, how you do banking, everything. We worked on employment manuals, employee policies, compensation packages. It was more than just coming to a board meeting and sitting and listening to what somebody tells you, or we were just active. And all the programs were going on besides. This was my focus, and this was my topic. And I just was excited about being part of helping them stay healthy. And that was really our goal. And so, at a certain point, they put the audit up for bid, and that's what we were doing. We were servicing many, many nonprofits. We actually won that bid. The consequence to the agency was, though, is for independence, I can't be in a position of making any decisions or management decisions. So I had to get off the board and off the finance committees. But we've been doing the audit now since 2013. they have questions, I'm glad to help them because the agency is so wonderful. What they do for the community and the children and their families is just so amazing and exemplary. So it's my honor to be with them all these 20 years, and I hope to continue.
Congratulations to my dear friends at Child Care Resources of Rockland as you celebrate 50 years. You have truly made a difference in early childhood care and education. You understood excellence in the most basic yet profound ways. My name is Jan Lepori, former director of Riverview Nursery School. Prior to opening our nursery school, CCR&R provided invaluable guidance to myself and a small committee tasked with starting a preschool as a community outreach of Simpson Memorial Church. Your site visits, conversations on New York State regs, and developmentally appropriate practices did not stop after we finally opened our doors in the fall of 1991. I had so much more to learn, and you continue to provide wonderful guidance and training for 32 years as director. Child Care Resources blessed me with both professional support and wonderful friendships. I am so grateful for the many opportunities I had to learn and grow in my career through CCR&R. My staff also thrived through your programming and relationships. Thank you for enriching all of our lives and our preschool in immeasurable ways through fall conferences at RCC and New York State AEYC conferences, director training workshops, engaging hands-on staff workshops at CCR&R, as well as coming to Riverview to support our teachers with on-site training. Your encouragement and resourcefulness to receive grants from CCR&R, New York State, OCFS, Department of Health made such a difference. New York State Riverview teachers felt recognized and supported for their dedication, and our school programming and school facility was enhanced in ways we could not have accomplished alone. Your involvement with the local NAEYC affiliate, PAEYC, gave me a chance to work with so many of you in organizing and supporting training programs and conferences. And for your strong advocacy in Albany, you have advanced early childhood education in New York, and I'm sure it has impacted the cause nationally. Thank you so much for all of the memories working together. Thank you, Jane, Marcia, Elaine, Ellen, David, Debbie, Kristen, Karen, Maria, Bonnie, and so many more dedicated individuals who have been part of CCR&R through the years. It took your amazing village to accomplish all that you have for children, teachers, caregivers, and families. Thank you so much, Jan.
It was an invaluable resource in terms of whenever I had a question, because I came from a very private sector. I worked for Trinity Church in Lower Manhattan, and it was quite different. And so when I wanted to learn about licensing and the rules and regulations that applied to Rockland, and really the essence of Rockland, because Rockland to me was a foreign country. And I really needed to understand the fabric of Rockland and what I was going to do. My center is a private center, so I really needed to understand, the clientele that I was hoping to serve. So I worked a lot with people who are no longer here. I worked with David Del Campo, Marsha Schur, Debbie Silver, and they really guided me through how I'm going to do this. And here I am. And today, the people I find most helpful are Allison. She's terrific. She's very, very knowledgeable, particularly with the wonderful grants that have happened in the past several years. And the nurse. And that was back in the day. It was Kirsten Saunders, and I needed to get a medical administration test. And she was the one who trained me, and she was the one who came out and tested me again once my license for that expired. David Del Campo came out and did a workshop for my state on intergenerational and intercultural workshops. So we introduced my staff to different kinds of plastic foods and different stories and different songs, and it was really great. And David was out in the yard. We have a big yard, and we have 2 evergreen bushes near our staircase, and they happen to have red berries on them. Well, David came up and informed me that they were poisonous, and I had to rip out the bushes. I was like, that's not happening. So I sat and picked off every red berry and put them in my pocket so that he would not tell me that the bushes couldn't be there. I've never been told since that the bushes could not be there, but that was the one thing that stood out in my mind.
Besides just being there, whenever I called to get advice or information, one of the greatest things that happened was when they informed me that there was going to be a conference in New York City from an organization called the Campaign for Commercial-Free Childhood, which is now called Fair Play. And I remember it was Marcia Shear told me that this conference was happening, and I knew it was something I had to be at, which I went to, and that just opened up many other doors, and it really also fed into the advocacy part of what the nursery school stands for, which is empowering parents and the community around issues that affect children and how, you know, the media is kind of manipulating even very young children to buy products and to even think in certain ways. So that conference was amazing, and Marcia Shear, I remember, and a bunch of people from Child Care Resources went, and I was there. And then I started going to that conference every year that they held it. The other really important thing was that they supported us when we became accredited by NAEYC, the National Association for the Education of Young Children. They, you know, amazingly had grant money to support us. Ellen Mitchell was our, you know, connection, and she came and met with us, and it was a long process to become accredited, and we did, and you know, been accredited ever since. And it was an amazing process to go to, and it really, even though we already had pretty high standards ourselves for how we work with and teach young children, it just bumped us up, you know, kind of to another level of standards. And it was just fantastic working with Child Care Resources to get that process, to get us through that process. It was a lot. So those are 2 major things. But then, I mean, there's the conferences, the annual conferences that we would go to every year that were just fantastic, and they were invigorating and inspirational, and you came away with so much information. And the other thing is that they really wanted local people to participate and present. So I presented many times at those conferences, and so did my other staff. You know, the annual fundraising dinner that they had, all these things were just so valuable to me and the school. And of course the workshops that they did. So, I mean, I really can't say enough about how grateful I am for their support and the relationship that we cultivated all these years. I mean, really the thing that I think about the most goes back to, I mentioned Marcia Shear, who is here. And it's not really a story, it's just that she, you know, the name of the nursery school is Peace Through Play Nursery School, so we're trying to embody these concepts and to teach the children about, you know, what does it mean to be peace? What is peace and kindness and respect and cooperation? And I just remember that Marcia Shear, she was using this word peace, you know, regularly, like it was part of her vocabulary about how we work with children. So I just always remember that stood out for me. And, you know, I'll just also mention Debbie Silver, because she, you know, was so taken with the school that her grandson went there. And that really meant a lot to me. And now her second grandson's going to start in September. So I just, I feel like we've come full circle in so many ways with a lot of the people who are here or were here that I feel connected to. So that just feels, really special and meaningful to me. Well, I opened Peace to Play in 2001, and I immediately, I'm not sure how I actually found out about Child Care Resource. They might have even contacted me, or maybe through my licensor. But like I said, virtually from the beginning, I was interacting with them, and it never stopped. I think I also didn't mention the Eat Well, Play Hard grant, which is a grant, again, that Child Care Resources had that we were a huge part of. And so all these things over the years, which were pretty big things, the conferences, getting accredited, the Eat Well, Play Hard grant, there are probably other things that I just can't remember, but there was always really something that Child Care Resources of Rockland was offering us that was, beyond what you could hope for. It was just supporting us in every way. I honestly can't say enough. It was a very, I know, we would have survived if we didn't have them, but because of them, we really thrived. I really believe that. There was nobody on the staff who wasn't incredibly professional, knowledgeable, knowledgeable, caring, easy to work with, a pleasure to work with. It's just, the organization just really embodied everything that you would want, but also what it means to advocate and support early childhood, young children. I can only speak personally for me, but I think it filtered down to all the staff at Peace Through Play. They made you feel that what you were doing was so valuable to the world, and I think that's something that we still carry with us from their input all those years. I have talked about CCRR to the families at the school many times, and we've tried to get the families over the years involved, like the dinner, when they have the annual dinner. We've tried over the years to get families to go, but it's hard to do that. I've tried to get families to go to different workshops and some of the conferences, like that one I mentioned from Fair Play about commercialization of children. So whatever Child Care Resources sends our way, we send out to the parents. I recommend them all the time, especially if parents call us and they have young children that we can't serve and they're looking for a place. I'll always refer them here to get a list of places, that serve younger children. So, they're just invaluable resource across the board. The only thing I would like to do is just thank everybody, especially Jane, for just really, she just was at the helm, for the whole time that I was there. And I know I and my staff, we would talk about her a lot, how she just was running an organization that was so good for all of us, So, and then again, all the people that I mentioned, and I really feel like I left somebody out, but all that staff they were just all beautiful people who cared and wanted us to succeed. So to sum up, I just want to say thank you, for the 21 years I was there, but even now, I know they're still supporting the school. And I hope that they're always around. Another 50 years, and Peace Through Play to match it.
The value of having child care resources of Rockland here in Rockland County is that it's a critical service for our parents. It's important that they know when they're going out to work that there's a place that is safe, affordable for them to have their children while they're going out and working and contributing to the economy. We work very closely with them because the Department of Social Services often are serving our most economically challenged citizens. And when they're going back to work or they're trying to enter the workforce, it's really critical that they have good referrals to good, solid, safe, affordable childcare. And between the work that Child Care Resources of Rockland and the Department of Social Services does together, we're able to put some funding together that make it affordable for parents. It's critical that they stay here in Rockland, and they're critical of all the work that they do here for the parents.
I think the value and impact of CCR on Rockland County is huge. I think the Child Care Resources of Rockland County is a lifeline for this county. Every day the staff shows up and they work to ensure that each child in this county will have a better opportunity at obtaining high quality child care. And we know that high quality child care means that your academic success is improved, your possibilities for developing great social, developmental, and cognitive skills all are improved by having high quality child care. In addition, when I think about the impact and value, I think about a quote that I love that says that child care is the work that enables everyone to work. So when you break that down, the financial stability, the economic vitality of this county, of Rockland County, is directly correlated to the success of the programs and services offered here at Child Care Resources of Rockland. That's our value, that's our impact.
I was so proud to be on the board of Child Care Resources of Rockland because it was just it is and was a stellar organization that helps provide infrastructure, the supports that families need. In Rockland, it has been just incredibly important. As the times have changed, Child Care Resources of Rockland has changed and in fact led the change in the times of making sure that what we learn about brain development, of what we learn about how children learn best, is shared and becomes part of the structure of what the child care field has to thrive. So it helps improve the quality of the early childhood field. It helps families find and judge that quality. And it's just that absolutely necessary support here in Rockland to help our families help their kids.
I had never been in charge of an agency before. I had been a teacher mostly in classrooms or a trainer. Thought maybe it might be interesting to be settled into an agency, which I'd never had that before. It was either a school or a university. So then when the time came that Judy Savage, who was the second executive director, decided to retire, and the board approached me to do an interview for the position, I told them I didn't want the position because I had no administrative experience and I didn't want to do advocacy, which is a lot of what the executive director did. But they hired me anyway. And in 2003, I stepped into the role and realized that I really did like the diversity of it. I liked being in the personnel business, working with staff, hiring staff, interviewing staff. I liked writing grants, which I'd never done before, to get contracts with government or private agencies to further the services. I actually learned to like advocacy, calling up on our elected officials and telling them about the importance of childcare and early learning and trying to encourage them to do a better job of funding our industry. So for me as an executive director, it was very diverse, and that's something that I liked about it. It's something that's never idle. There's never a dull moment. There's always something to do, new creative things to think about, ways to handle situations that might arise. And I like being able to have a purpose. And I think that is something that was very important to me. And I think that there is a value to this agency and a huge impact that this agency has made on Rockland County, and actually even beyond. And I'm going to start with that because Phyllis Helbron, who started this agency, actually became a very statewide national advocate for child care resource and referral agencies. There were 3 or 4 in the state already before this one was started. And so she, along with the other executive directors from those other few agencies, had a huge impact on the state level to get the state to recognize the importance, and then nationally. Judy Savage then took over and did the same thing. And then when I became the executive director, I realized what an impact that was. So not only do we help families here in Rockland understand and search for and find quality childcare for their children, but we also help those child care programs be the best that they can be by providing them professional development, going into their classrooms and helping their teachers with improvements or just helping them with understanding child development. It's also talking to elected officials about the importance of childcare and early learning, as I said, because people don't know that. If they're not child development experts, they don't understand that a child's brain develops the most, like 85%, within their first 5 years of life. Now, if you knew that, I would think you'd want to put most of your funding into the earliest years of life, because that's when they're really growing and developing the most. People tend to think more about college level, even secondary level of education. They don't think enough about early learning. In fact, in our society, it was, hey, you're a mom, you stay home, you have kids, you take care of them, that's what you do. Kids don't need anything else until they get into public school. And that's just absolutely not true. They need lots of wonderful experiences, whether it's with a parent or someone else, such as an early learning experience with other children. So the impact is helping people understand that and then following through by making it happen in the county with all of these amazing child care programs that we serve. And that's also the value. So if somebody doesn't understand the value of young children, we want them to know that. So we'll do whatever we can through social media, through talking with them, through interviews, through our website, all the different ways that we can to help people understand that they need to be thinking more about young children. When we do grant writing, we do a lot of writing about that and the issues of child development and understanding that. So I believe that we have a huge impact by helping people understand that, and that's also part of the value of this agency.
Well, I think I think many folks, unless they've explored childcare, probably don't know as much about it. And it's one of those kind of quiet agencies in the sense that it struggles with so many major issues, in my view. But for those who know it's there, it is a lifesaver for many. Again, many working folks need to have a place where their children can go and be safe while they go and work. And child care resources allows at least a place for folks, parents, to determine where they might want to put their child for a period of time. And they, using child care resources as a reference, they can be sure that they're going to be, that their children are going to be okay. So it's a critical issue. And by the way, right now, it's as critical as ever both in terms of funding and programmatic issues. Not only because we need folks to be able to get childcare, but we need to pay the folks who manage and who take care of the children in daycare centers and the like. It's an enormous issue, and it's not going away. I think the state, this is political to some extent, has fallen behind in terms of its support for daycare workers, and what have you. It's a critical piece, and so many parents, single or otherwise, rely on childcare to allow them to go out and make a living to support their children. So there's still an enormous challenge, and I think government needs to step up more. That's just my opinion, to be supportive both of the workers and also of the institutions that help. And Child Care Resources allows parents to find place where they can actually take a look at what options might be available for them. Well, I mean, I think they've helped lots of folks in Rockland County. One of them is the fellow sitting across from you. When we had a need for childcare and what have you. And so I mean, our population is 320,000 people, and it's grown, of course, dramatically. But the need for health care and the need for childcare in particular is enormous. And so when you think about the importance, the fact that Child Care Resources is there is really important. And I think of all the things that maybe I would like to emphasize is it's not known well enough. I mean, unless you're a parent who's looking, trying to find things. But these childcare places are in fact observed, and they have to go through rigorous process. Child Care Resources knows all that process and knows, of course, what's available and what's good. And I think more people should and could know about it, and it's important. So it's a great agency, and it's really grown in the many years. I mean, it's really grown a lot from the early stages, and not just in promoting the need for childcare for working adults, but and also just making sure that individuals, families have a resource to turn to.
My vision is big. My vision is out of the box. Of course, I envision us continuing to thrive, because when Child Care Resources of Rockland thrives, Rockland County thrives. I envision us always remembering that we provide services for the greatest resource in Rockland County, but it's also the most vulnerable resource in Rockland County. I envision us thinking out of the box in terms of the offerings, our program offerings. Sometimes parents work nights, weekends, and holidays. How do we foster the availability of child care services that are available nights, weekends, and holidays? I think about the fact that many communities here within Rockland prefer to leave their children with someone they know. So how do we provide informal child care providers with the expertise they need to provide high quality child care? I also think about us working and advocating for securing a living wage, a livable wage for child care providers who provide so much but are paid so little. And I think lastly, Rockland County is one of the most diverse counties in the state of New York. And as an agency in Rockland County, I want us to sharpen our lens on areas of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. That's my vision.
My name is Dr. Kashia Allen, and I'm the new Executive Director of Child Care Resources of Rockland, Inc. Child Care Resources of Rockland, Inc. is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Hard to imagine that the organization has been in existence for 50 years. The organization is deeply rooted within the community. We serve families to ensure that they are able to find quality and affordable childcare. We assist providers in ensuring that they maintain their license, they get top-notch professional development services, and are able to have someone who's advocating in the field of early childhood education for them. Early childhood education is crucial. It is critical to the development of children. It is crucial to the development of the local economy. When families are able to work and not worry about their children, they're able to provide for their families, they're able to contribute to the local economy and ensure that they are independent. When children are safe, their families are able to know that they are in a great environment and able to work. When children are in early childhood education settings, families are able to go to work, families are able to contribute to the economy, and the economy is important to the continuation and survival of Rockland County. See, everything is connected. Early childhood education allows children to gain the necessary social skills for school, and it allows families to go into the workforce, be productive, and contribute to the local economy. As Child Care Resources of Rockland, Inc. continues on, we look forward to celebrating another 50 years. We look forward to ensuring that the county, the families, the providers, and everyone we serve are able to continue to provide excellent services, and we are able to ensure that we will expand, we will advocate, and we will always be at the forefront for ensuring that there is quality and affordable childcare in Rockland County. Thank you.